It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and yes, we are finally into 2005, a new year, new movies to look at, and we start with the first weekend of the year, January 7th, 2005. As usual, before we get to the newer movies, we delve into the movies from last year that I didn't get to go through, but we will get to those ones in a little bit. But first, there is one new release that came out this weekend, a notable new release, and we're going to talk about that one first, and that is Michael Keaton and Deborah Kara Unger in the supernatural horror film, White Noise. Yeah, $10 says none of what they told you was absolutely true, but yeah, the trailer pretty much gives you some of what the plot of the movie is. The title refers to EVP, electronic voice phenomena, where anonymous voice-like sounds, which are some believe to be from the other side, interpreted as spirit voices, are found on electronic audio readings. And Michael Keaton plays a man who, he decides to enter this, to expand on this more, to not only hear his wife again, but also to find out how far he can go into this. And the movie really is nothing that great. In fact, it got terrible reviews when it came out. It was mostly seen by a lot of people as a film that was not a successful movie by any means necessary. However, this movie is significant for one piece of information that will be eventually coming in the years to come at the start of every year. See, White Noise is surprising box office success for a movie released on the first weekend after New Year's Day was seen as a shock, because this is usually the winter dumping months. This is usually the worst weekend for new releases, because this is the weekend when studios basically throw out the worst movies possible. And we've talked about the worst January movies in the past, and we're going to certainly get into more January bad movies in the next couple of years to come. But the success of this movie, the fact that this film made as much as it did, because it was a big hit when it came out, and it led studios to essentially reassess their releasing strategies for horror films. The chairman of Universal, about 8 years after this, said, "The first weekend in January used to be a non-starter for people. We had this little movie called White Noise that did business, and that has been a place where movies that tend to operate." And yeah, this was a poorly reviewed film by critics, but it found a way to make significant money, and a quality film in that genre could do even better, studios realized. And so this eventually led to other big movies, which notably began with, of all things, Cloverfield, with the help of a viral marketing campaign. That movie went on to become a big hit until Ride Along surpassed it as the highest grossing January opening weekend of all time. The Devil Inside was also a big hit, which, it was negatively panned by critics and audiences, but it opened up on the first weekend of the year, and there's nothing to come out to really combat it. So that's how that movie made a lot of money. And so you can thank White Noise for the fact that we've had the opening weekend of January have a movie that surprisingly does much better than anybody could have imagined. And even this very day, we still had that. This past year, we just had Night Swim that did that. Even though the movie is complete and utter garbage, people went to go see it. It was a hit. And, you can thank White Noise for that. And like I said, it's a movie we've seen done to death before. It's a film that's literally the equivalent of, it really is one of the earliest movies that try to use this viral marketing idea. You see the website on there for this EVP thing, and like I said, none of that really was actually something that I'm pretty sure was made to prove that this actually happens or not. Just made to sell the movie, and it did sell the film, and it was a huge hit when it came out. I mean, it made 9 times back its budget, which was $10 million. It brought in $90 million worldwide, which was unbelievable for a movie of this caliber. And the movie is pretty forgettable itself, but its impact has been felt ever since this movie came out. So, 20 years later, you can thank this movie for the way that Hollywood studios decide to open a big horror movie on the first weekend of the year, and it's paid off in dividends. So, thank you, White Noise, you terrible, terrible movie. Excuse me. But anyway, now that we have that out of the way, the fan keeps getting in the way. Time to head into the leftovers. And let's start off with the first one we have here, The Lion King 1.5. So, as you can tell from the trailer there, the movie is essentially The Lion King, except from Timon and Pumbaa's point of view. They start to watch the original Lion King movie, but Timon keeps insisting to fast forward to when they come in because they weren't seeing the beginning of the story, or anywhere until halfway through. But Pumbaa suggests telling the audience their story, which begins before Simba's journey begins. And through this we meet Timon's family, his uncle Max, and his mother, both played by Jerry Stiller and Julie Kavner, discover why he left his meerkat colony. We learn where he learned Hakuna Matata and how he meets Pumbaa and the perils they encounter while searching for their dream home. So it's essentially the Lion King's equivalent to the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. I mean, it's a movie where, that's a play, of course, where they take the characters, the two main characters there, and put them in every major event that happens in Hamlet. And they do a pretty good job representing that with the Lion King and Timon and Pumbaa. They find a really funny and clever way to put these two characters into every scene of the Lion King without creating a whole lot of major plot holes, and manages to create something pretty impressive in terms of logistical ways of storytelling. Like they show you, they're in a scene where Scar is doing the Be Prepared sequence. They're in the scene with the wildebeest. There's a ton of moments in the movie where they're all over the place, and you would have never guessed it. And the way that they did it was actually really, really clever, and you have to give them a lot of credit for that. Plus, they got a lot of the main cast back from the last movie, too. I mean, not only do you have the new characters, but you also have Nathan Lane, Ernie Sabella back, Robert Guillaume, Moira Kelly. I think Matthew Broderick also came back, too, for this. And there's a lot of other ones, too, that came back. A lot of Whoopi Goldberg came back for this one. There's a lot of people that came back from the original Lion King to do this movie. And you really could tell that Disney was putting a lot more effort into the direct-to-video movies, because this one has some high-quality animation. I mean, some good animation that you would swear this would work well in the theater. And I think it was actually, if I'm not mistaken, was actually put into some select theaters, but don't quote me on that. I could have sworn that there was something, that it was one of these Disney direct-to-video movies we're going to get through here. But yeah, the animation quality is getting a whole lot better on these movies, and it started with this one right here, The Lion King 1.5. It's definitely very enjoyable, and I honestly think it's much more worth checking out, much more than the actual Lion King 2 was. I mean, yeah, I think this is actually the better follow-up film to The Lion King than Simba's Pride was, but then again, that's just my personal take on it. So that's The Lion King 1.5. On to the next movie we have here. Mickey, Donald, and Goofy are the Three Musketeers. Yeah, it's a little corny, and yeah, this is clearly intended for kids, but honestly, once we get to the other Mickey Mouse movie of 2004, you're going to look back on this and think, yeah, this was probably the better of the two movies. But this is Mickey, Donald, Goofy, the Three Musketeers, which I think this is actually the first real movie with a storyline, a full-length storyline, not an anthology film, not something like Fun or Fancy Free or even Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas or Twice Upon a Christmas. That's a straightforward feature-length Mickey Mouse movie. I could be wrong on that. I'd have to double-check again, but I'm pretty sure this is actually the first one, and actually one of the only ones, if I'm not mistaken. But this is Mickey, Donald, and Goofy, the Three Musketeers. And as you can tell, the story, I think, is pretty much right up what you think it is. It's basically a musical animated comedy film adaptation of the classic story of the Three Musketeers by Alexander Dumas, which features Mickey, Donald, and Goofy as the title characters. I'm actually kind of surprised they didn't just call it the Three Mouseketeers, because I feel like that maybe they felt like it would be way too easy to call that. But yeah, there's nothing really much more in terms of a story that's you can add to this in general. But really the biggest problem I think the movie has in general is that it really doesn't have anything to it that kind of makes it stand out on its own. There's a couple of things that's very positive about the movie. I really like the animation style here. I really do like how the animation style of this is very reminiscent of the classic Disney cartoon style of the 40s and 50s, and even a little bit of the 1990 Prince and the Pauper, too. They do that kind of similar style of animation here, but there's a lot of homages to, like, the classic Disney animation, which I gotta give them a lot of credit for. It's interesting that this is also Donovan Cook, who also did Return to Neverland for Disney, but is most notable as the man who did Two Stupid Dogs. And I'll give him a lot of credit for the animation style of the film. It's definitely something very refreshing, very different, and very kind of cool to see again in a modern setting. And it's really the strongest element of the whole movie in general. But other than that, it's fine for what it is. It's a harmless movie. It's clearly intended for little kids, but there's nothing bad about it at all. It's very inoffensive. It's harmless. It's got effort put into it. It's just not made for an older audience like myself. I think more kids will get into this one, but not the adults. But it's fine for what it is. It's Mickey, Donald, and Goofy doing what they do best with the Three Musketeers as the background of the storyline. I mean, really, there's not much more I can really add to this one that hasn't already been said. So, Let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, and that is Lars von Trier's. What a contrast to what we just looked at. Lars von Trier's latest film, Nicole Kidman in Dogville. Not much there for that trailer, but the story of this is that you have a parable that's used as an extremely minimal, stage-like set to tell the story of Grace Mulligan, played by Nicole Kidman, a woman hiding from mobsters who arrives in the small mountain town of Dogville, Colorado, and is provided refuge in return for physical labor. And it's very much a film that is very much what you expect from Lars von Trier. Very art-housey, very pretentious, very experimental, very avant-garde, which some people like, some people don't like so much. I, for one, am kind of on the mend about it. I'm not really much of a big Lars von Trier fan in general. And I watched the movie, and I'm just kind of like, that's about what I expected it to be. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it either. I'm just kind of like, it's fine. I mean, it's just mediocre at best, in my opinion. The acting overall is very good. Not only do you have Nicole Kidman, but you have a cast that also includes Lauren Bacall, Paul Bettany, Chloe Sevigny, Stellan Skarsgård, Udo Kier, Ben Gazzara, Patricia Clarkson, James Caan, John Hurt doing the narration for it. It's an overall intriguing idea in general. It's kind of an anthology film with all the characters they have, but except that not probably the best way that I would have liked to have seen them done it. But like I said, it's not a bad movie by any means necessary. It's just a film that's just kind of like, I really don't have that deep emotional feeling towards it. I didn't really love it. I didn't really hate it. I just thought it was mostly okay for what it was. Kind of in the middle. It's a movie that, honestly, I probably would never want to watch again, honestly. But I'm glad I saw it once, so gotta give it that. Gotta give it credit for credit's due. That's what I would try to say. But so with that said, moving on to the next movie here. Robin Williams in an underrated film you probably never even heard of called The Final Cut. So in this movie, it takes place in a setting where brain implants make it possible to record the sight and sound of entire lives. Robin Williams plays a professional who specializes in editing the memories of unsavory people into uncritical memorials that they are played at their funerals. So it's basically a sci-fi thriller. And one of Robin Williams, it definitely is one of Robin Williams' more underrated movies. It has a lot of cool concepts overall to work with here. I think the cast overall is really good. Mira Sorvino, Jim Caviezel. This director, Omar Naim, I don't think I've ever seen any of his other films before. I think this might be the only film he's ever directed. Let's see. He's done stuff like Dead Awake, which from this poster I see right here looks like a bad Twilight knockoff. But it's also he also did Becoming, two films I've never even heard of. So this is the only thing that I know him that he's done. I know that he's done, but I knew it because Robin Williams was in it, and yeah, it's actually kind of a little underrated film. Not everything about it works. Sometimes the story can get a little too much for its own good in general. But the film overall, I think, is a very cool concept. I like a lot of the ideas they're trying to go for here. The ending kind of doesn't stick the landing as much as I think they want to, but it definitely is a film that definitely deserves to be seen. It's definitely one of Robin Williams' more underrated films in general. And he made a couple of underrated little gems here we're going to get to in the next couple of years or so. So, yeah, this is definitely one I'd recommend checking out. If you're looking for some good underrated Robin Williams stuff, definitely check out The Final Cut. So, moving on to the next movie. From the director of Bend It Like Beckham, we have Bride and Prejudice. So it's basically a Bollywood-style update of the classic Jane Austen story, Sense and Pride and Prejudice, in which Mrs. Bakshi is eager to find suitable husbands for her 4 unmarried daughters. When the rich single gentlemen Barrage and Darcy come to visit, the Bakshis have high hopes. Through circumstance and bullish opinions, those circumstance and bullish opinions threaten to get in the way of their romance. One of the most notable things about the movie, as I mentioned before, it's directed by the same person that did Bend It Like Beckham, but it also features a pretty strong cast, including Aishwarya Rai, Martin Henderson, Naveen Andrews. This was right around the time when Lost was premiering. Indira Varma from Game of Thrones is in this movie. It's definitely got a lot of hurdles to cross because it's a movie that's literally coming after Bend It Like Beckham, which I thought was an incredible film. And this, it's good. It's really inventive. It's a really fun idea to do a Bollywood-style version of Pride and Prejudice, which I think it's done very well here for the most part. It does kind of go into predictable territory overall, and it kind of does things that kind of push it off for me to not consider it a really great film in general. But it's a good film nonetheless. I like a lot of the actors in here. I really like Aishwarya Rai. I think they do a very good job of creating a nice visual flair to it. And like I said, it's a really good, interesting idea to take the story of Pride and Prejudice and try to make a Bollywood film out of it. And I think for the most part, it does succeed very well. Certainly not a great film overall, but a film I do recommend checking out. If you saw Bend It Like Beckham, you're going to really like this one a lot. So let's go ahead and talk about that other Mickey Mouse movie that came out in 2004, and that is Mickey's Twice Upon a Christmas. Now, I know what you're thinking, and yes, some of the jokes in this movie are absolutely horrible, and the trailer was not doing it any favors, but I don't think this is as bad as people make it out to be. Yeah, it's definitely not Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas, but there's still things about it I really do enjoy about it. And as you can see, just like with Once Upon a Christmas, it's an anthology film where you have 5 different stories going on here, including a mix of very short stories and very long stories. There's one story in particular where Minnie and Daisy are basically in an ice skating competition, and it's really about it. I mean, there's really not much more about that one. There's a longer story with Huey, Dewey, and Louie as they go to the North Pole to make sure they're not on the naughty list and try to put themselves on the nice list so that they go in disguised as elves. And that one's pretty good. There's another one where Max and his father Goofy are celebrating the holidays with Max's girlfriend, who is not Roxanne, which some people have had a lot of problems with. It's definitely the weakest of the stories here. That one, Christmas Maximus, is what it's called. But yeah, that's the one that, yeah, I can agree with that one. That one's probably the weakest one of the entire bunch. You have another one where Donald all he wants to do for Christmas is just sit at home, relax, and have his cappuccino or it's some kind of it's a coffee. It's either coffee or he just wants to sit back and have hot chocolate is what I'm thinking of. Hot cocoa, jeez. Hot chocolate is what I'm thinking of. And Daisy and Huey, Dewey, and Louie want him to go to the mall and go see the Christmas displays and all that stuff, and he just doesn't want to do that. And the last story has Mickey and Pluto in it, and Pluto runs away from home after Mickey yells at him for ruining the Christmas decorations, and Pluto essentially finds himself at the North Pole, and he teams up with Santa's reindeer. And yeah, definitely, like I said before, this is definitely not as good as the first movie. And the first movie, I think, kept it simple. You had 3 simple stories where they were very good retellings of classic tales. Like the first one was The Gift of the Magi. Second one's kind of the equivalent of Yes, Virginia. There was a Santa Claus, and the third one was The Gift of the Magi. The first one is Christmas Every Day. This one just kind of goes all over the place. The animation overall is good. It's not great though. It's CG animation for a direct-to-video release, and this director, Matthew O'Callaghan, who's done a lot of animation you might be familiar with. He did the Itsy Bitsy Spider. He would do the Curious George movie after this. I don't think 3D animation was really his area of expertise at this point, but I could have sworn he's done some CG since then. Yeah, he has done some CG since then. He did motion capture work for A Christmas Carol. He worked on a lot of the Looney Tunes shorts that came out in the 2010s. He did stuff for Space Jam, A New Legacy, Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Road Trip. So, okay, maybe not everything he did was great, but he did get better as the time went on. And like I said, the film overall is good. It's an enjoyable film that you can pop on every time, or just wait for it to come on TV every year after Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas. I mean, it's definitely not as good as Once Upon a Christmas, but it's a fine film for what it is. I think there's a lot more to it than people let on. It's an enjoyable film. It's a really fun film in general, and like I said, definitely not as good as the first one, but good enough nonetheless. I think it's one that definitely deserves a lot more to be watched at Christmas time, so definitely check it out this year. So, with all that said, let's move on to the next movie, and that is Kangaroo Jack, Good Day, USA. AKA what the first Kangaroo Jack should have been, a freaking animated movie, and now, whatever the hell that first one was. When poachers kidnap Jackie Legs from the Australian outback, his friends leap into action. Their attempts to save him route them back to the U.S. into the glitz and glamour of Las Vegas. So it's basically Kangaroo Jack in Las Vegas, pretty much. And like I said, it's definitely a step in the right direction from the first movie, but even then, it's not that great of a movie. I mean, Jeff Bennett, I think, does a very good job as a replacement for Kangaroo Jack. They do have a good, decent cast of people involved to replace the actors from the original film. Like, you have Josh Keaton as Charlie, Ahmed Best as Louis, Jar Jar Binks as the Anthony Anderson character, Kath Soucie as the character of Stella Warren playing in that movie. But yeah, not a great film in general, but certainly a lot better than than the first movie was. A film that movie was just an insult to pretty much anyone's intelligence. This is a film that's at least trying. They're at least trying to do something that's is better than the first movie, have something of value to the series, and wasn't perfect all the way through, but certainly will take this over the first one easily. So, not much more to say about that one. That's Kangaroo Jack, Good Day USA. So let's go ahead and move on to the last movie I have on the list here. A film that I could have sworn came out in 2004, but I didn't see it on this list until I did the Wikipedia page, and that is Kung Fu Hustle. From the same guys that brought you Shaolin Soccer, this is the story that revolves around a murderous neighborhood gang, a poor village with unlikely heroes, and an aspiring gangster's fierce journey to find his true self. This is a movie that is essentially a mix of like retired actors famous for their 1970s Hong Kong action cinema, who were also in the film, and has been compared to contemporary and influential wuxia films like the recently released Hero and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, as well as Looney Tunes, because there's a lot of cartoony effects in this movie, and it was literally considered to be a live-action Looney Tunes movie is in real life, and yeah, that's exactly what this movie is. It's pretty damn good. Like, if you love Shaolin Soccer, you're gonna love the hell out of this movie. It's a fun movie, a silly, goofy, fun, over-the-top film on a number of different levels. It's just a movie that knows exactly what it has to do to entertain you, and it's a really damn good movie, man. It's one of those ones where they tell you right from the get-go how good of a movie it is, and then you have to just watch it for yourself, and then you realize that, yeah, they knew exactly what they were talking about, because the film is really good. It's a very incredibly insane movie that just is zany, over-the-top fun. I think it did its job a whole lot better than something like Kung Pao Into the Fist did. I think anybody could really tell you that, honestly, but yeah, this is definitely a film I really like a lot more than that film, as well as Shaolin Soccer. Even though I like Shaolin Soccer a lot, I could have sworn this was released in 2004, like May 2004, but every time I looked it up, it didn't say anything about it. I'm looking on here. It was released in September of 2004 at the Toronto Film Festival, and it didn't hit theaters until China got it on December 23rd of 2004, and it's actually going to hit the U.S. theaters on January 25th, 2005. So, I'm not completely off on when the movie came out, but I could have sworn this was released in 2004, like early 2004, but oh well. But I talked about it, so definitely one you got to check out. Kung Fu Hustle. I can't recommend this one enough. And so, with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. And the next time we meet, we'll take a look at 3 big new releases for 2005, including Samuel L. Jackson in the basketball sports drama Coach Carter. We also have the star-studded family comedy Racing Stripes, and the infamous Elektra with Jennifer Garner. And just like how I'm glad that Wesley Snipes got a redemption in Deadpool and Wolverine recently, I'm glad Jennifer Garner got a better representation of the character of Elektra with Deadpool and Wolverine. But we'll talk about the Elektra movie and how I absolutely hated this movie right from the get-go. But those 3 films we'll delve into all on the next episode, so be on the lookout for that one. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So, with that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.